What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Wrestling with Johners. This is episode 152, and today we're going to be looking at AEW, their pending pay-per-view, which is taking place on Saturday night, All Out, the second AEW offering of All Out, of course. We'll get into all of that. We'll talk about the matches. We'll give our predictions, and we're also going to be looking back at this past Tuesday's NXT, in particular the 1 hour Iron Man four-way match for the NXT Championship, and all the fallout from that, and all the comments online from the internet wrestling community, ever vocal, of course. But first, I want to introduce two guests. It's not very often I have kind of a three-way commentary team, but my two guests are Michael Jolly and Matt Bayliss. They've both been on the Wrestling with Johners podcast before, of course, but more recently part of the Turnbuckle Arms podcast. So Matt and Michael, thanks for coming on board, guys.
Thank you very much for having us.
Yep. And I'd say the Turnbuckle Arms started, I think the first episode dropped in about July, if I'm not mistaken. And it's going from strength to strength. I think you've recorded your third monthly episode and a few swift half bonus episodes in between. And of course, there's a bonus interview with TJ Sky that Matt did back last year that we've published through the Turnbuckle Arms podcast. But no, congratulations on all the success there. I mean, I hand it over to you, Michael. I mean, it's been a fantastic project so far, a great team, and Turnbuckle Arms seems to be going from strength to strength.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, thank you for helping us put this fantastic team together. Unfortunately, the rest of them are busy working in the bar today, and me and Matt have been able to get a little bit of a break away from it and do this with you. Yeah, absolutely. Love the guys. It wouldn't have happened if it weren't for you. So heartfelt thank you to yourself. So thank you.
All the hard work goes down to you guys. You put it all together and you record it. But you've covered a lot of really interesting topics. I mean, Matt, just handing over to you briefly. Some of the topics that you've covered, the cinematic universe, and one or two others. Talk us through, if any of our listeners haven't come across the Turnbuckle Arms yet, what they've missed so far, and anything to look forward to in future episodes.
We've covered off quite a broad range. We've all come up with a lot of different ideas. So we've talked about our favourite wrestlers, talked about the cinematic universe, which was like a really interesting conversation, just trying to define what it is and what it means to different people. Then in the Swift Halves, we've looked at gimmick matches, and myself and Chucky T did like a bit of a rundown on year one of AEW as well, which was quite interesting. But just to like echo what Michael said, that we couldn't really do it without sort of large Jonathan's backing. So it's it's been good to kind of get involved in the project. None of us knew each other beforehand as well.
Yeah.
So we've all kind of come together as a little miniature dysfunctional family.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a really good mix of characters and personalities that all drink in the Turnbuckle Arms, and lots of cool content. And I think you've got some sort of karaoke episode coming up soon, hosted by Grizz. Is that right?
Yeah, we don't want to spoil too much. Pretty much going to be Grizz singing for about 2 hours, I think. So, and we're just going to be there, like just staring at the camera, I think. So,
I'm sure that'll be fun. I'm sure that'll be hilarious. Lots of cool stuff. And of course, you got a video version on your YouTube channel, and a video version on Turnbuckle TV, which is soon to be changed over to Powered 4 TV. So lots of great stuff there. And of course, you can listen to and watch every single episode of the Turnbuckle Arms on the ever popular website. What's the website called, Matt?
It's something like Wrestling with Johners, but it's like we're trying to get it changed.
Just stop there. You're doing fine. WrestlingWithJohners.com, ladies and gents. That's where you can catch all of the Turnbuckle Arms stuff, including Apple and Spotify and all popular streaming podcast platforms, and YouTube and Turnbuckle TV, Powered 4 TV, of course. But yes, it's WrestlingWithJohners.com, Matt. Nothing else. And that's also where you'll find all Wrestling with Johners merchandise, podcast interviews, and so on. And some articles as well by Matt and by Lexi. So lots of cool stuff. So Michael and Matt, before we get into NXT and AEW predictions, I want to talk a little bit about Mauro Ranallo, because it was announced earlier on this week, just a few days ago, that he had, by mutual consent, agreed to leave NXT or WWE. He's had a lot of mental health issues over the last, well, pretty much all of his life, but it's been documented over the last 4 or 5 years. And he's been mostly commentating on NXT for his career with WWE. He did have a bit of a time away after being the lead announcer on SmackDown, and then came back onto NXT. And he's kind of officially, through mutual agreement, left the company. And I think that the backstory is that his mother is unfortunately not very well in British Columbia, Canada, which is where he's from. So on top of having personal issues and mental health issues, family issues, he's decided to leave WWE or NXT. Of course, we've seen the introduction of Stu Bennett or Wade Barrett on the commentary booth alongside Tom Phillips, I think it is.
Yeah.
And I know that things are still up in the air regarding a long-term commentary team. We've still got Beth Phoenix there, but will Nigel McGuinness kind of rejoin or be part of the UK brand? That's yet to be seen. But Mauro Ranallo does leave a big gap in kind of the NXT universe, the commentary desk there, and does leave behind many fond memories. Certainly, I've seen him once in New Orleans when I saw TakeOver there a couple of years back. But I mean, starting with you, Matt, I mean, what sort of fond memories will you kind of have of Mauro Ranallo in his NXT run, and what sort of legacy do you think he's going to leave behind?
Yeah, I think he was definitely like the voice of NXT for a long time. So you'd associate sort of, you know, his excitement commentating on the matches. I think there's potentially maybe it became like a bit of a caricature of itself over time. I'm not sure with NXT if they get kind of like fed the lines the same way they reportedly do on the main rosters, but so, you know, and I think it didn't really work without a crowd as well, because like him getting excited alongside the crowd and like the big pops and the Mamma Mia's and everything else, it's you know, but he's definitely, you know, he's synonymous with NXT, and you'll always recognize his voice and sort of like remember some of the big matches that he's called. But I think it'll be interesting to see what they do going forwards, and if they're going to have someone with that charisma and that insight and that sort of like childish excitement that we all have as fans as well.
Yeah, and Michael, you're kind of what sort of legacy do you think Mauro Ranallo will leave on the kind of NXT universe, and any fond memories in particular that stand out?
Well, to be honest, I think Matt sums it up. I mean, the guy himself is fantastic. You can tell when he talks, when he commentates, that he's very passionate. He's got a love for the business. He's got a love for the sport. It's never felt as if you know, he wants to be somewhere else, and that's one thing that I think a lot of people got brought over to NXT to watch the product more, especially the video that they showed of him when he was from the commentary desk, that went viral, of him shouting and chanting and just losing his mind over the matches that he was seeing. I think. Like anything, Matt's right. I think the certain, like, the catchphrases, like anything, in my mind, sometimes was a little bit too overboard. It was almost as if they told him you need to say it during every match for us to use it as a screen grab or for anything for social media. Now, unfortunately, however you look at it, social media can work both one of two ways, good and bad. And WWE are trying to capitalise the social media side of it by using him and other people with their stuff, of their catchphrases. I think he's going to be sadly missed. I think a lot of people, as I said, especially me, got more invested with him because of just how he was. It's just a sad loss. Obviously, appreciate and understand why, because I'd do exactly the same for what he's doing. But as we've seen, he's going to still stay with sports. He's still going to do his boxing and MMA for
Bellator and Showtime.
Bellator, yeah. So he's still, but clearly, doing that, they may, obviously we don't know behind the scenes, it could have just been that an agreement was made better for him, and obviously if WWE wanted him more and more, and he can't commit to it, then fair play to him. It's just unfortunate, it's a sad loss.
Yeah, absolutely. And, obviously his family matters and personal matters take priority over everything in circumstances like this. He's not actually been live in Full Sail or the Performance Centre pretty much through this whole pandemic. I think he's been recording remotely, just the same way that Beth Phoenix does, although they have had Stu Bennett and Tom Phillips at the commentary desk live at Full Sail over the last few weeks, of course. But he will be sadly missed. And personally, I miss his kind of exuberance and his passion and his excitement and love for the business. And, maybe contrary to what you said, Michael, I do feel that the difference between Mauro Ranallo and a lot of the other commentators was that, he definitely showed passion, and it did seem kind of quite natural, sometimes a little bit over the top, yes. And I think that Mauro Ranallo's commentary style was very divisive. If you loved it for the passion or you hated it for the passion, there's obviously a lot of rap references in his commentary and a lot of sporting references in his commentary. But I think overall, his passion and his exuberance and his love for the sport will not be matched, and certainly can't be matched by anybody else on the WWE commentary roster. But yes, and the next question is, will he kind of appear anywhere in wrestling sometime in the future? There's been some wild rumours out there that maybe Renee Young or Renee Parquette and Mauro Ranallo might end up in AEW before the end of the year. Any thoughts on that, Michael, very briefly? Do you think that there's a chance? Do you think there's a chance, or do you think he's kind of just going to concentrate on boxing and MMA and going to give wrestling a rest?
For me, same with Renee. Renee, if we go quickly on to Renee, she doesn't need AEW. She's openly said that it's not for her, and I think at this precise moment with only one show that AEW have got and the commentary team that they have, which is obviously like any team, has its ups and downs. I think they're doing really well, especially with the introduction of Jericho, unless they're going to give her own product, her own program project, or when this new show comes out, however far down the line, there's no need. I mean, she's already still tied to Fox. So unless she comes away from Fox, I don't know. But she's got a good voice on her. She'll be able to work in any sporting industry, whether it be basketball or anything like that. Personally, I don't think she should go to AEW because they don't need her. But on the other side, she doesn't need them. She's got a face and a voice that captures everyone's attention, and I think, she's all right on her own. Mauro Ranallo, sorry, he's the same. He doesn't need wrestling. I think it'd be quite cool to have him as like a special guest at times.
Yeah.
But I think depending on how family, as you said, family comes first. I don't think he's needed in wrestling. He's been happy beforehand, and I'm sure he'll be happy afterwards.
Yeah, definitely. Right, so before we have a look at the 60-minute four-way Iron Man match for the NXT Championship, just a quick plug for myself. Wrestling with Johners now has its own merch store on Pro Wrestling Tees, and over Labor Day weekend from the 3rd of September through to the 7th of September, there's a 20% off sale. So go to Pro Wrestling Tees /Wrestling with Johners. Check out our 4 designs there, including 2 new and exclusive, they're all exclusive t-shirts, but 2 new designs, one by Rich Baker, who did a design for Wrestling with Johners, and another kind of more retro style. But please go and check that out, prowrestlingtees.com /Wrestling with Johners, and over the next 3 or 4 days, take advantage of the 20% off Labor Day sale. So on to the 60-minute 4-way Iron Man match. So, this has had the whole wrestling world talking, both before the match and after the match, for various reasons. A lot of mixed views, a lot of controversy as to why they came up with the outcome that they did. whether it was just to try to grab ratings or grab as many ratings as they can 2 weeks on the bounce. But we're, of course, talking about Johnny Gargano versus Adam Cole versus Tommaso Ciampa versus Finn Balor. And, of course, this is all off the back of Karrion Kross being, he vacated the NXT Championship just less than a week after winning it from Keith Lee at TakeOver 30. I can't remember precisely what the injury was, maybe a separated shoulder or something like that. But obviously, the previous episode of NXT, Karrion Kross vacated the championship, and William Regal announced this four-way for this past Tuesday, Super Tuesday, in fact. This match was promoted as being like the Mount Rushmore of NXT, the four greatest champions, and arguably four of the best wrestlers on the NXT payroll, if not WWE, if not the whole of North America, some might say the world. But you got four past NXT champions, including Adam Cole, the longest reigning NXT champion, who was the champion before Keith Lee, of course. Now, to the best of my knowledge, there's been one-on-one Iron Man matches. There's been maybe, I think, three-way Iron Man matches, but I don't think there's ever been, and I think they acknowledge this on TV, a four-way Iron Man match, 60-minute Iron Man match. And certainly with the increased stakes of it being for the NXT Championship, and the winner of this match would be only the third person to hold the championship for a second time. The previous two were Samoa Joe and Shinsuke Nakamura, of course. So, Matt, starting with you, before Super Tuesday, before you kind of sat down and watched this match, what were your thoughts and expectations going into it? I mean, were you excited? Were you looking forward to it? I mean, I think all of us can agree that we were quite hyped for the match. And looking forward to what was being described as, a once-in-a-lifetime match between four of the greatest on NXT. But were you looking forward to it, my friends? Give us your kind of thoughts going into it.
So, on a really basic level, I was excited for it. My one question with the lineup would have been having Ciampa in there. I love him to bits. I think he's an amazing wrestler. But obviously he's only just come back, and then storyline wise, like he'd got announced in the match and he came back and he'd gone like super psycho. So does he deserve to be in the match? Is it too soon for him coming back? But the fact that he never lost the title in the first place and he's a past champion, obviously from that respect he deserves to be in the match. I'm always concerned when they put together like a super match with little to no build. It was literally a case of like, right, these are our four biggest names. What can we do to put them together? And ratings. We've got Super Tuesday coming up, and so I was a little apprehensive beforehand, but also still excited because they are four of the best wrestlers in the world. Whatever PWI says. So in that respect, I was interested, and with the history of what NXT have done with putting on unique matches and like the storytelling and how they've kind of made the best out of situations and stuff, I was definitely intrigued to see how they'd do it, who they'd put over, what had come out on the end of it. So
yeah,
that was more watching the match. So
yeah, and Michael, were you just as excited going into it and kind of give us your feelings before you actually sat down and watched the match?
I was surprised with the announcement that William Regal did. I thought, like Matt said, four fantastic wrestlers, if not the best in the world right now. Come at me. Sorry. But I agree. There's no build. Personally, did it need an Iron Man match to do what they did? Obviously, as like you said at the beginning, it's down to ratings. I mean, look at the last 6 months that both companies have done. Well, all the companies have done for ratings. I just feel that they could have done potentially, if you want to call it, like 2 semi-final matches, and the winners go on to face each other the following week, which is in essence what ended up happening. I do agree with Matt. There wasn't much of a build, especially for what in essence would be a main event pay-per-view match. It's just unfortunate that they had to do something in such a short space of time with the injury to Cross. So I do get that.
Yeah.
So
it makes you wonder whether, I know they had this big opportunity, Super Tuesday, unopposed on the USA Network to draw a big rating with this match. But once again, you know, they could have put another main event caliber match in its place this past Tuesday and given this four-way match time to build, time to brew, give it a month or so. Dare I say it, potentially, you know, is such a big match. Leave it to the next takeover, which I think, you know, might be a little way off, to be fair. Possibly War Games might be the next one in November. There might be one sooner, but I can't think of what it might be. But yeah, it's such a big match, but you know, the build wasn't there. It sounds like they kind of pushed the button quickly, but they had to react with Karrion Kross vacating the title, and no bigger way. You know, they couldn't have reacted in any bigger way, to be honest with you. Now I'm not going to break down the match move for move, but I'm going to run through the pinfalls just for anybody that's not seen the match. Want to know kind of what the outcome was, what the controversy was. You know, we'll break down. So Finn Balor got the first pinfall following a huge senton dive to the outside, then a coup de grace back in the ring on Adam Cole to go 1-0 up, and that was on 26 minutes. Johnny Gargano picked up the second fall and the first fall for himself after Tommaso Ciampa. He did all the hard work with a Willow's Bell and a fairy tale ended on Finn Balor, but then Gargano, ever the opportunist, got in there, shoved Ciampa out the way and pinned Balor. Soon afterwards, Adam Cole got the pinfall with a Panama City Sunrise on Gargano, adding the next fall to his name. Tommaso Ciampa, he picked up a pinfall to add to his name not long after with a fairy tale ending on Adam Cole, making it one fall apiece with only 20 minutes remaining. We get into the final 10 minutes, gents, and we get stereo super kicks. Gargano it gets hit with a tornado DDT to the floor. He hits a tornado DDT to the floor to Finn Balor. We get into the final 5 minutes with Ciampa taking control of the match on the outside. We even saw Ciampa nail Gargano with a catapult to the underside of the ring apron. We've seen that a few times, and that looks pretty devastating. As the clock ticks down to the final minute or two, we see Ciampa hit an air raid crash on Gargano from the middle turnbuckle to the canvas, but Finn Balor drops another coup de grace, this time on Ciampa, picks up a surprise pinfall with only 18 seconds left on the clock. Then from out of nowhere, you get Adam Cole come in with a last shot running knee to the head of Balor and picks up the pinfall with only 2 seconds remaining, and that's the end of the match. So it was one pinfall to Ciampa and Gargano, two pinfalls apiece to Cole and Balor. So Adam Cole immediately jumps up thinking that he had won the match as he gained the last pinfall, but the bell rings. William Regal comes in and announces that it's a draw between Cole and Balor, and that there will be a sudden death tiebreaker for the championship between Finn Balor and Adam Cole next week, Super Tuesday Part 2, to crown a new NXT champion. So before we get into the controversy of the match effectively being carried over into sudden death or a tiebreaker, jumping over to you, Matt, first of all, did you enjoy the match? Was it a 60-minute that flowed well for you? Did it drag in places? Was it good action? You know, how does it stand up as a standalone 60-minute Iron Man match for you?
I was a little bit disappointed because one thing that NXT do really, really well is tell stories, and there wasn't really much storytelling. The MVP for me in the match was Gargano.
Yeah,
because he was the only one really who developed any character during that match. Obviously, like with the sneaky pin that he won, and then before Champ picked up his pin where he did the double DDT through the ropes. The way that Gargano sold that was amazing. Like, he was dead, just like bouncing on his head while the pinfall happened and stuff. So, yeah, I mean, it had good bits to it and good spots, obviously, but it didn't really develop the characters or anything. It didn't really sort of do anything storyline wise. So, I mean, obviously, on any other day, you'd love to see Finn Balor and Adam Cole go one-on-one. So the end result of it is we get that match. So that's certainly not a bad thing. But it just didn't really seem to develop anything. So, but like I say, there were some good moments, and like the Gargano and Ciampa going back to back at one point. and they both get thrown out the ring, and then Cole and Balor do the too sweet, and then Balor turns over. So
That
there's
was
lots
fun.
of pieces. So, but like you mentioned as well, like the amount of adverts and everything didn't really help. I think if it had been, if it had been like a flat straight hour of wrestling, they probably could have done more with it. But the same with any multi-man match, like it happens with ladder matches, people get taken out temporarily so they can have a breather and then come back, and it was so it was fairly not predictable, but it could have been more exciting, I think. So.
Yeah. I mean, had it been on a takeover or a pay-per-view, you wouldn't have had these adverts. You would have been able to get into the match. I mean, I kept getting taken out of the match by the adverts, and of course, we're having to watch a cheeky stream somewhere on the internet just to be able to view it, because I know NXT isn't. It used to come out the day after the show. Now it's several days after, so we had to kind of catch it somehow. But the adverts, I mean, I wouldn't want to watch that every single week on the USA Network over in the States, but it did throw me out. But please carry on with your thoughts.
Yeah, and I think just on that note as well, and in terms of like maintaining excitement and stuff, to Jolly's point earlier about like if they'd have done like semi-finals and a final, even if they'd have done it as a four-way but done it as an elimination match, I think that would have, there would have been more desperation and stuff like to not get pinned and to sort of like, there'd be people breaking up pinfalls and there'd be a lot more going on. And then, if you wanted to push someone as like a heel, then they could screw someone out of it. And, there's more opportunities to do stuff with that. So it wasn't a bad wrestling match by any stretch of the imagination, and it wouldn't be with those four involved. But I think from the hype and everything like that, it was always going to struggle to live up to it.
Yeah. And Michael, your thoughts on the match? So we've mentioned the adverts kind of taking us out the match, but what were some of the highlights and maybe some of the lowlights for you? What were your thoughts, your overall thoughts on the match?
For me, I felt it went too long. I know why they were doing it, because obviously they didn't want to burn out, and I get that. I understand that. The amount of times we've all watched matches where we feel that it could have gone a little bit longer or could have gone a lot shorter. I did feel that they missed out, and I were expecting a lot more high flying from all four of them. They're renowned and known for doing really, really good high flying maneuvers. Some of the high points was that everyone got their own little time to shine. During the period of the match, you saw people taking over the running of it. Like you said with the adverts, it stopped you from seeing the fantastic double submissions that they put on. I just thought that was just fantastic.
Yeah.
As I said, for me, the four of them are fantastic. Four of them together are very, very good. But I do feel, like what Matt said, I do feel that the Iron Man match was the wrong one to do. If it was an elimination, or as I said earlier, if it was the winners go, both of them could have had a 30-minute Iron Man match, and then the winners go on to face each other in a stipulation match the following week. That would have been a lot better for me than the result that it came out with. I like the two people that came out as winners. I'm happy with that. But again, for me, the low points were, the bits that I felt could have been better was there was too much resting. Now I get, again, as you said, I get why people rest. They've got to, because they've gone through a lot and they've got to go for an hour. But I just feel that it could have been a lot shorter. And
would you have preferred maybe a 30-minute Iron Man match? Do you think that would have worked?
Yeah, even if you did it with just one fall, as in like how it ended up, where two of them just got one fall each, that's fine. That's not a problem. I just feel that the hour, there was times where even I was struggling, and unfortunately, it's just is how it is. And with a lot more build, like you were saying, I think they could have pulled off a really, really good match. But as it stood at the time, they could with the time that they had, and I don't think they pulled off what they wanted to. And I think that's obviously where people were having issues, which is obviously what we'll talk about.
I think it's definitely a match that I'll probably go back and watch again without adverts. Or, I mean, there was always the kind of the picture at the top corner, but it wasn't the same when you've got 5 minutes of American adverts, every 5 minutes it seemed. Yeah, like I say, I'll probably go back and watch the network version uninterrupted and see if I feel any different. But the quality of the match, it was definitely there. You can't fault it with the caliber of talent that was in the ring for that 60 minutes, but. Yeah, there was no point in the match where I was jumping out of my seat or really getting excited over anything in particular. I think the thing that I got most excited about was when Balor and Cole did the two sweets, and then Balor turned his back on Cole, and that was a pretty fun moment. But the action was solid, don't get me wrong, but there was nothing there that really seemed particularly different to what we've seen before, maybe. Now, guys, do you understand the controversy that's going on after this match? A lot of people being very unhappy. This match has got a lot of mixed reviews. It's been quite divisive throughout the internet wrestling community on Facebook and Twitter. A lot of people very frustrated. I mean, your very own Jason Lee Wood voiced his frustration on the Johnner's Facebook page. Basically, along with a lot of other people, upset the fact that they feel shortchanged. So they didn't get a satisfactory ending by the end of the 60 minutes, and it just seemed like a setup. The whole match was a setup for next week's championship match, which Jason and a lot of other people are quite upset with, that we didn't have a conclusive winner. But I mean, Matt, starting with yourself, can you understand the frustration of a lot of people online about the ending and the fact that it just seems like a setup for another match just to grab more ratings?
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, like, if you had a Royal Rumble and no one won, it's like, people feel aggrieved by that. So I think that to have it built up, have this massive match, and then to not have an actual winner at the end of it is, it's a little bit disappointing. I mean, I totally understand from a business perspective why they've done it, and they want to get people to come back and watch more next week. But if you're gonna have a controversial ending, make it controversial. Like it could be maybe two people getting pinned at the same time and only one got counted, or the time ran out as someone was about to win or something, like, which they came close to that being in reality. But so yeah, I think if they were going to be controversial, they could have actually been controversial. So rather than just being a bit of a damp squib at the end of it. So
yeah, absolutely. I mean, like I say, we've got another cracking match to look forward to this Tuesday, but a lot of people obviously feeling quite shortchanged that they was really looking forward to this match and invested a full 60 minutes in this once-in-a-lifetime match between four amazing talents, and just didn't get a satisfactory conclusion at the end of it. But Michael, do you understand the frustration out there from the internet wrestling fans? And are you looking forward to Tuesday's match, or is it left a little bit of a bitter taste in your mouth?
I'm looking forward to Tuesday's match, regardless of the outcome. Whoever won out of them, whether it be any of the four, it won't matter to me, because they all can perform. They all can put on fantastic matches. However, I do understand why people are complaining, because of they're building up this match and there's no payoff.
Yeah.
However, if you look at the business side of it, it invests you more to go into the following week, because you're still going to get the blow-off match. It could be worse. They could have done a Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels extra overtime, which I think a lot of people would have really complained about more. But I'm, as I said, I can see it from both sides. I would have liked to have seen a finish and an outright winner, but with the four people that are there, I'm happy with who's come out, and I'm happy to be invested in the following week to find out who will become the next champion. So, as I said, I'm sitting on the fence with it. I can see both sides, but I don't know if people need to really lose their mind regarding it. It's wrestling. It's WWE. We all expect it. We all know what goes on behind the scenes. So I don't think a lot of people need to be as outraged as some are.
Yeah,
So.
and he certainly did the business. I mean, ratings-wise, remember it was unopposed, but it was 3% up on the previous week when they were on a Wednesday. It's still unopposed that week, but this week, Super Tuesday Part 1, the ratings that I've got here, 849,000 saw it live. So that's a good result, and no doubt would have been just as strong, even if they were on a Wednesday head-to-head with AEW, of course. But some really good numbers there, and expect next Tuesday once again to be unopposed on the USA Network Tuesday night, to be strong numbers once again. But there we go. I mean, just looking ahead to next week, just your thoughts and feelings. I mean, we've got two big matches to look forward to on next week's NXT. We've got a steel cage match between Rhea Ripley and Mercedes Martinez, which is a main event match anywhere in the world. I'm quite happy if that opens the show or closes the show, but a great marquee match there. And then, of course, you've got the championship match, the kind of the blow off, you could say, between Finn Balor and Adam Cole. Where we will hopefully get a new NXT champion. I hope they're not going to swerve us again, because people will be throwing their WWE subscriptions out the window. But just very quickly, start with you, Matt. Any thoughts on those two matches, and give us your predictions? Who's going to win the steel cage match, and who's going to be crowned the new NXT champion come Tuesday night? Sorry.
I'm excited for both matches. I think the cage match will be interesting to see what they do. There's sort of like two powerhouse athletes as well, so it'll be different to maybe what we've seen in the past, especially like with women's cage matches. So I did see somewhere that apparently the championship match is kicking off the show as well. So
right.
So hopefully they'll give them plenty of time, and if they go out and pull off like a wrestling classic, then it kind of makes it all worthwhile. So I'm not sure who I want to win. I like both of them, like, probably equally. Obviously Cole's recently had the title, so maybe taking him away from it for a bit longer is probably not a bad thing. And obviously Balor's gone back to NXT to make a difference and to become the prince. And so so it might be a better idea to put the title onto him, because I'm not really sure with Balor at the moment if he's heel or face. He's kind of flip-flopping a little bit between the two. So put the title on him to make sure he becomes like the baby face of the company. And then you've got the three other guys that can chase him. And then obviously when Karrion Kross comes back, whenever that is, it's natural for him to kind of to fall into that chase as well.
Yeah. I got a funny feeling regarding Karrion Kross, and I think when he does come back, he'll be going straight back up onto the main roster. I think that they see this injury as kind of wasted time, and when he comes back, I think he'll be primed for either Raw or SmackDown, especially with the entrance and Scarlett. But Michael, your thoughts on next week's matches? Two great matches. Matt just said that it's likely the championship match will open the show, possibly closing with a steel cage match, which would make sense, I suppose. But any thoughts on those two matches? Who have you got pegged to win?
Agree. I think it'd be a fantastic way to get people in watching the match, bookending the shows themselves. That way, it keeps your audience invested, because the last thing you want to do is people just to tune in for the last half hour. I agree. I think Balor will be a good fit. However, obviously, depending on how they change it, he's supposed to be facing Walter for the NXT UK title whenever that gets back in flow for Dublin. If it ever happens at Dublin still for the next takeover for them. Yeah, I agree. I think Balor would be a good shout. Sorry.
Yeah.
And as you said, the talent that is there to chase Balor would be fantastic. Even if they have to fight against themselves to get to Balor, it's very, very good. And I absolutely love Ripley. I think, with the exception of WrestleMania, which I don't think she should have lost the belt, but it is where it is. It's business, as we talk about all the time. That's all it is. It's business. I think she's a fantastic wrestler. I think she's got a fantastic aura about her, and she's very charismatic and captures the camera very, very well, that you are invested in her. Martinez is epic. if you've ever seen her on the Indies, or even when she were at AEW for a very small stint, she's got so many years behind her that could potentially be a match of a year candidate if they give them the amount of time they allow. And I like what they're doing with Martinez, but for me, I'd say Balor and Ripley for the wins.
Yeah. Regarding the steel cage match, I'd be happy if Rhea Ripley or Mercedes Martinez won. To be honest with you, I mean, Mercedes Martinez is fairly new to the NXT roster as a full-time member anyway, so they might want to kind of push her, being as she's still fairly new. But then I know that they still got big things in store for Rhea Ripley. I know there's talk of moving her up to either Raw or SmackDown. I don't want to call it the main roster because everything's meant to be on an even playing field, but it still doesn't seem that way sometimes. But they're looking to make big things of Rhea Ripley on either Raw or SmackDown fairly soon. So it could be an opportunity to put Mercedes Martinez over, or to make Rhea Ripley look strong. As for the championship match for the NXT Championship, I think I've got to go for Balor. I think it makes sense, especially with Adam Cole having recently held the championship. For him to be champion again, okay, fair enough, but would seem a bit too soon for me. And with Balor as champion after not having held the championship for well over 4 years, will seem kind of a lot fresher than having Adam Cole with his hands around the gold. But thank you for that, gentlemen. I do appreciate it. Lots of interesting conversation regarding a very, very good match, and mixed reviews around the internet wrestling community. And I just wanted to get your thoughts on it. But let's focus for the next 20-25 minutes or so on AEW. This Saturday, of course, is the second annual All Out, and some people might say it's the third annual because back in September 2018 you had the inaugural All In pay-per-view, and it was a show that many wrestling writers, Dave Meltzer included, thought would never happen, that no kind of indie show or show made up of indie stars would ever have over 10,000 people in an arena to kind of go up against or to match any of the bigger players in the game. But they proved them wrong. With the help of Ring of Honor and independent stars from all over the world, including New Japan, they did put on an outstanding show September 2018, which was highlighted by, of course, Cody versus Nick Aldis for the NWA Championship in a fantastic match there. So that was the kind of the seed to what then became AEW. That was launched in January 2019. We had our first pay-per-view in May that year with Double or Nothing, and the first ever all-out pay-per-view was last September, and I think it was exactly the same night as NXT UK TakeOver Cardiff, which was another incredible show. So we kind of saw that show, and then we raced home to watch AEW on pay-per-view, just the same as we'll be doing this coming Saturday on the Fight Network or on whatever pay-per-view streaming service you're going to be watching it on. But it promises to be another fantastic show. The difference between now and 12 months ago, as we've got used to over the last 6 or 7 months, is it's kind of social distancing and no fans, but they are going to be playing out of Daly's Place, which is an outdoor venue. And if you've watched recent episodes of Dynamite or Dark, you will know that there are quite a few fans. They've got social distancing in the outdoor arena there, creating a bit of atmosphere, and it definitely kind of makes a big difference for me as a wrestling fan. So let's talk about some of the matches then, guys, because it is a stacked card. I've got 9 matches on my notes here, including one pre-show match, a buy-in match. So I think the pay-per-view starts at 1 a.m. UK time, which will be about 8 p.m. Eastern time over in the States. And from midnight, they've got a buy-in 1 hour special kind of building up to the main show. And part of that buy-in, there'll be Britt Baker versus Big Swole. So Britt Baker will be accompanied by Rebel. Of course, this is being billed as a tooth and nail match. So this match, I don't know, a lot of people are saying that this shouldn't be on the pre-show, shouldn't be on the buy-in, it should be on the main card. It's actually had a fair bit of build. These two, Big Swole and Britt Baker, have had a bit of a rivalry going for a good couple of months, I'd like to say now. And maybe this is leading to something bigger in the future. But now Britt Baker's been out injured for several months now. with some kind of leg injury, and she's had some kind of surgery on her nose as well, following a broken nose. So it makes you wonder whether an actual match will take place here, or would it be more of an angle? Because I personally don't feel that Britt Baker's fully recovered yet, so that might be why it's on the buy-in. But Matt, starting with you, any interest in Big Swole versus Britt Baker, and any thoughts, any predictions?
Yeah, I'm surprised it's not on the main show because it is something that they have been building to for a long time. So like you said, maybe if it's some kind of an angle rather than a match, then that maybe justifies it. But like on the Turnbuckle Arms, we spoke quite a lot about Britt Baker and Pat Cole. So we're all quite keen on her and seeing where she can go. So, you know, it seems strange to be kind of, especially while she's been out injured and she's still been involved in TV week in, week out, and being like, you know, a mainstay of the roster even without competing. So, so I'd imagine that she'll go over, because I think if she's coming back into the ring, then, you know, they're going to want to start building her up to, you know, to start fighting for the title.
Yeah. So, do you think it's going to be more of an angle, or do you have a winner in this one?
I'd imagine it's going to be more of an angle. So, you know, Britt Baker will come out probably physically on top. You know, it's because you know, if they want to build it, then that's what they need to do, really.
Yeah. Yeah, and Michael, to yourself, I mean, to me, it sounds like it's more of an angle, and I got the feeling that it could be more of a Rebel versus Big Swole as opposed to Britt Baker. I think Britt Baker will definitely be kind of calling the shots from the outside, in my opinion. But who do you think might come out on top in this one, unless you think it's just purely going to be angle?
Well, I've heard recently that it's from Khan that it's going to be potentially a cinematic match.
Okay.
Which would be quite interesting to see, especially if it's been set in and around the dentist area. I think Britt needs to win this, especially with the amount of time she's been off, and to carry on her feud to become the AEW champion, women's champion. Sorry. I do agree that I think it should have got a main spot, especially with the amount of build that they've done. There are other matches on there that I could suggest putting on the buy-in, but it unfortunately it is where it is. I like it. I mean, I've loved what they've done with Britt, especially being injured. Not a lot of people get to do that. Stone Cold stands out for one when he broke his neck, and I just feel that they've used stuff around them, especially with everything that's going on in the world, to their advantage. And I think that's one thing that AEW have done really well, and Britt and Swole have done. Their back and forth, their storyline feud over the last few months has been spot on. But yeah, I'll go with Britt Baker on this. I think it's the right thing to do.
I think if it is more of a cinematic match, that could be a way to get around any shortcomings regarding Britt Baker still potentially being slightly injured. It's billed as a tooth and nail match. That'd be interesting to see what they come up with. I'm probably going to go with a Britt Baker win, but with a lot of involvement from Rebel there. Let's have a look at some of the multi-man matches then, because the multi-man matches are quite intriguing, to be honest with you. You've got the Dark Order, Brody Lee, Colt Cabana, Evil Uno, Stu Grayson versus Matt Cardona, formerly Zack Ryder, of course, Scorpio Sky, the Nightmare, the Natural Nightmares, Dustin Rhodes and QT Marshall with Ali on the outside. So a good 8-man tag here. I've grown more a fan of the Dark Order recently, and I absolutely loved how the Brody Lee Cody match. I just loved the way that he squashed him in under 5 minutes, with Cody not being able to get into any offense, and I thought that made Brody Lee not only look more dominant, especially the post-match attack as well, but it gave a bit more credibility in my eyes to the Dark Order, and I'm looking forward to seeing what they can do. It'd be interesting to see Matt Cardona in an AEW ring, so it should be quite a solid 8-man match. But just very briefly, let me start with you, Michael. Any thoughts on this one and your predictions?
I agree with I absolutely love in the Dark Order. I think they've finally started to find what they needed to do from the very start. Brody Lee, this is what they should have done elsewhere. I'm loving how he is, how dominant he is, especially with Cody. No one saw that coming. And for me, I think it's the right thing to do to give Dark Order the win, to carry on that momentum. Potentially have Matt Cardona challenge for the title later down the line. Hopefully this builds off from it, or even Scorpio Sky. But I think for me, Dark Order, I'm loving what they're doing. I love the what's the word? They're not all on the same page. I love how Brody Lee will just turn around and smack someone if they speak out of line, or if they do something that he doesn't like. Yeah, I just think what they've done with Brody Lee and Dark Order in the last 4 or 5 months is fantastic.
Yeah. So you're going for a Dark Order win, and Matt, yourself?
Yeah, I agree on that one. I think with what they've been doing with the Dark Order and the build, it makes sense for them to win, because obviously, like with Cody getting walked over by Brody Lee, it'd be a bit daft to then book the family. It'd be WWE booking to have like the Nightmare family go over as revenge, and or like equal in the booking and stuff like that. So I think with Matt Cardona, potentially, it could lead to him getting a title shot, or it could maybe him going the other way and joining the Dark Order as well, because he's fairly fresh talent on AEW, so he's not really been, other than just his like alignment with Cody, there's not really been a massive amount for him. So that might be something they can do. But yeah, I mean, what they've done with Dark Order lately, like with all the Colt Cabana stuff as well, has been really good. It's made them a lot more interesting and a lot more relevant as well, because they were kind of a little bit wayward for such a long time.
Yeah. Another match, a tag match. Now, this was only booked onto the card this past Wednesday, or whenever Dynamite was this week. I'm kind of being thrown out with all the different days they're airing Dynamite on. But the Jurassic Express versus the Young Bucks. Now, I wear my Jurassic Express t-shirt showing my allegiance to Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus, but this match was only booked this past week because they were the winning team, the winning foursome in an 8-man tag on the last Dynamite, so they were then putting a match together at All Out. But I'm looking forward to this one. I think you can't have an AEW pay-per-view without having the Young Bucks on there. I think they are arguably the best tag team in the world right now. And I think it's going to be a cracking match. I do think that Luchasaurus hasn't really kind of demonstrated his size or skill very well on past episodes. I don't think he's really fared very well or been able to demonstrate what he can do. I think there's been a few botches there on his behalf, which have been quite noticeable on camera. But on the whole, I think Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus are a fantastic pairing. So any thoughts on this one? I mean, personally, I've got to go for the Young Bucks. I don't think you can have the Young Bucks on a pay-per-view without them kind of going over or looking strong. This is going to be a very good match. But Matt, starting with you, any thoughts on the Jurassic Express versus the Bucks?
Yeah, it should be a good match. I'd like both teams. This is potentially a match that could maybe go on the pre-show, because if you've got people that are on the fence about buying the pay-per-view for $20, $30, whatever it costs, show them something like that, which is going to be high flying. There'll be a bit of like comedy in it as well, so potentially that could work. I'd imagine the Bucks will go over, but they've kind of proven in the last year that they don't always book themselves to win, so it might be a good push for the Dinosaur Boy, basically. So also I'd love to see Marco Stunt go rogue. It'd be a really random heel turn, but I'd love to see him just lose it and go rogue. But I can't see it happening. But Luchasaurus I really like, and I think there's a lot of potential, and they have developed the character over the last sort of 12 months as well. So he's quite fun-loving, but then he does get serious as well. So, but yeah, I'd imagine like a high-paced, sort of like high-action match. Hopefully, the Bucks book themselves to lose, but you never know.
Yeah, definitely a match I'm looking forward to. And Michael, your thoughts on this one?
I love them both. I think Young Bucks are a team that, as like Matt said, they don't need to win. They're more than happy to take the loss, but they're very open to putting other teams over. Absolutely love Jurassic Express. I think they're so over. It's phenomenal how much they are over. Depending on the outcome on a certain title match later on in the card, if a certain team wins, I think Young Bucks would win. I'd put money on Young Bucks to win to carry on that feud. However, both teams, like Matt said, both teams can eat a loss. It's not going to affect them too much to stop their push because they are so over and they're so light. For me, I'd like Jurassic Express to win, but business side, I'd say it's going to beat Young Bucks. But yeah, I'm happy with either. I think it's going to be a really, really good match. But as you said, unfortunately with Luchasaurus, with his size, sometimes he tries doing stuff that's a little bit out of his comfort zone, which is obviously what you said at the beginning, where it's been noticed, picked up on. But yeah, I'm happy with either.
Should be a great match. Should be a really good match. And like I say, could play into the championship match, which we'll talk about in a minute. But let's talk about the 21-man Casino Battle Royal. So this is the third men's version of the Casino Battle Royal. I think there was a women's version last year. But the participants at the moment, I think we've got 20 confirmed, and the 21st will probably be the wild card on the night. But you've got Darby Allin, Lance Archer, Brian Cage, Ricky Starks, Pentagon Jr., Ray Phoenix, The Butcher, The Blade, Eddie Kingston, Sean Spears, Billy Gunn, Austin Gunn, Jake Hager, Santana Ortiz, Chuck Taylor, and Trent Beretta, and the 21st to be announced on the day. So any thoughts on this one? It's a very, very strong lineup. I mean, you look at some of the names there: Darby Allin, Lance Archer, Brian Cage, just to name a few. You've got the Lucha Brothers, Eddie Kingston, who's new on the scene, Sean Spears. A great lineup there, really is. So unlike other battle rules we've seen in the past from AEW, where you could probably say on one hand the number of top talent in the ring and the rest are kind of second tier, most of them are kind of first tier in this one. And of course, the winner of the battle royal will then receive a future championship shot. So Matt, jumping back to you again, any standout names, anybody in particular that you think could or should win? Any predictions for who the 21st man might be?
In terms of the winner, I kind of hope they pull the trigger on Sean Spears, because he's been there or thereabouts. He's been, like relevant throughout AEW, and and they've never really done anything with him. So I think as a potential candidate for them to give a big push to, it might be worthwhile using him. They've tried Lance Archer, they've tried Cage, and then they could do with a fresh face, getting that. Well, not a fresh face as such, but someone different, getting that push and moving into that. So in terms of the 21st man, it's either going to be someone amazing or a complete letdown. I don't think there's much middle ground on it. So probably like Funkasaurus or something. So
but Brock Lesnar's a free agent at the moment. It could be Mr. Lesnar.
I mean, I'm pretty sure Tony Khan's a fairly wealthy man. So but yeah, it's like I'm really not sure, because I'm just trying to think of like who has been released and who would actually be like a decent name to come in. Like Impact have picked up most of them, I think, but or it'll be like a return. I mean, it'll be too soon for Cody to come back, because obviously he's still selling the beatdown from the other week. But yeah, it could be quite interesting. And then like, obviously having the tag team wrestlers in there as well, like the Lucha Brothers are involved, so they could do anything in that sort of match. My one hope for it, I've got my fingers crossed for, is that definitely the first one and the women's one. I think clusterfuck. I don't know if I'm allowed to use that word on the Wrestling with John's podcast, but
you can.
Because I did, so it's like you don't have to beat me. So
definitely allowed to use the word cluster.
Oh, that's fine. So but that was in terms of like the actual presentation, the commentary. Like, I mean, JR doesn't know what day it is some of the time anyway, but it's like, he couldn't keep up with it. He didn't know who the people were and stuff like that. But obviously, with the list of names you've read off now, a lot of my people that have grown with AEW. So hopefully by having a settled roster and people that people know coming into the match as well. So hopefully, it'll be a step up from the previous sort of battle royals that they've had.
Yeah, I'll tell you who I'd like the 21st man to be, which could kind of throw a little bit of a controversy into the main event, but I wouldn't mind if this 21st man is Wardlow. I think that would be quite interesting. Another big guy in there, and it could kind of throw a little bit of hesitation MJF's way for the main event. But personally, I think that I'd love to see Lance Archer win it, to be honest with you. I think he's been very, very dominant. I don't think he should have lost in the TNT Championship match to Cody, although Cody was a very good champion. But that kind of put a big cloud over what they were trying to do with Lance Archer, and it's taken them until now to build him up. But Michael, throwing it over to you very quickly, your thoughts on this one, and who would you like to win?
Like as you said, not everyone's been named yet. So from the list that they've already announced, it's. I mean, the names you'd pick Brian Cage to start with, but he's already had his shot. So for me, I would go Lance Archer again. They shouldn't have done the TNT Championship with him because I think, personally, I think that tarnished him, especially if he's not going to win or if he gets DQ'd or anything like that. Make him strong heel, and it doesn't affect his credibility that way. Depending on the outcome of the main title match, I think having Lance Archer win, especially with Jay the Snake by his side, is a fantastic person to have. I think your call with Wardlow is a good shout, because then it obviously, especially if they do then a shot of him winning afterwards and he stood next to MJF, and you can see the terror in MJF's face would be immense.
I think there's going to be a Wardlow turn somewhere down the line, so it might as well happen on Saturday night.
Yeah, I mean, for people that aren't there, I know obviously with restrictions around the world, I'd love to have seen Pac come into it.
But you never know.
Yeah, and then obviously you've got people that have claimed they're never going to wrestle again. You've got, if you're going to talk about debuts or returns, you've got the former Rusev. That even if it was just a one-off, that'll be quite cool, quite good pop. But for people that are there, unfortunately they've got to fill it out with a lot of tag team partners. I'd actually quite like Pentagon Jr. If we're not going to go for Lance Archer. Pentagon Jr., fantastic wrestler. I think he'd be fantastic as having Ray Phoenix by his side, especially if they're going to challenge Moxley if he ends up being the champion at after the show. But for me, I think it's just going to be an awesome, maybe 20 minutes, half an hour of just madness. But for me, I think Lance Archer will stand tall with people that have announced. I'll go with Lance Archer, yeah.
Very good. Right, the next two matches, gents, I just want your winners, and then we can focus on the final three matches. So, Matt Hardy versus Sammy Guevara. So, Michael, Matt Hardy versus Sammy Guevara. This is a broken rules match, so we're not quite sure what that entails. It's obviously going to be some kind of street fight, broken. It might be in the Hardy compound, you never know. But some sort of kind of anything goes match. But just your winner on this one, Matt Hardy versus Sammy Guevara.
Sammy Guevara.
Okay, and Mr. Bayliss?
Yeah, 100% agree. I think, Matt Hardy doesn't need to win wrestling matches. I think he's there to put people over.
Yeah. And the added stipulation is that if Hardy loses, that he must leave AEW. So very interesting. Of course, they can't put that stipulation in if they're not going to follow through. So that always gives away kind of the outcome of the match to a certain degree. Right. Hikaru Shida versus Thunder Rosa. The intriguing thing with this is they seem to be in partnership to a certain degree with the NWA. And Thunder Rosa is, of course, the NWA Women's Champion. But this looks like a very intriguing match. Now, both titles are not on the line. It's only for the AEW Women's Champion, but potentially Thunder Rosa could come away as a double champion. I think, because I don't think AEW will allow that to happen, I think it's got to go to Hikaru Shida. But Michael, who's your pick on this one?
Agree, Shida, but I feel that it's going to be a fantastic match, especially what Rosa did on Dynamite last past week. Shida with Sandy Deep, was it?
So I think Thunder Rosa beat Serena Deeb, didn't she, on Dynamite, and that was a very good match. Yeah.
So I think from that caliber, I mean, they're both fantastic wrestlers. Rosa and Shida, I think, will knock it out of the park.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's got to be Shida. I agree with you. I don't think it'd be the right thing to do with AEW putting the belt on an NWA star unless they're going to go into partnership.
No, but it's nice to see they at least have a working agreement for this match and potentially for other matches in the future. Matt, your prediction on this one?
Shida for me, but for different reasons. Just purely, I think she keeps the title because it'll either be building Britt up to come and challenge for it because obviously she injured her way back, or the whole Nyla Rose and Vicky Guerrero and everything else going on. So, so I think Shida keeps the title, but I also fully expect a really top draw match.
Yeah, I think this could be one of the standout matches of the night, and really into Thunder Rosa. So I think it's going to be a great match, and she shows a lot of promise. It wouldn't surprise me if she becomes a regular on AEW for as long as NWA aren't on TV. So there we go. Let's talk a bit more about the top three matches then. First of all, for the AEW World Tag Team Championships, current champions going into it, Kenny Omega and Hangman Adam Page versus FTR. The former Revival, of course, Cash Wheeler, Dash Harwood with Tully Blanchard. Don't forget Tully on the outside. This just screams 5-star match all day long. And I also think it screams the end of the partnership between Kenny Omega and Adam Page, and the beginning of a championship reign for FTR, leading to the inevitable match with Young Bucks. But that's just my thoughts. Starting with you, Matt, this match is going to be absolutely fantastic. I mean, they could just show this match as far as I'm concerned, and I'll be happy all day long. But give us your thoughts on this one, and give us your winner.
Yeah, intrigued by this one. I think no one expected Page and Kenny to hold the titles for anywhere near as long as they have, or for their relationship to kind of go up and down the way that it has. So it is interesting. Obviously, they laid the seeds of doubt on the latest episode of Dynamite as to where Page's allegiance lies, and I think they thought they'd got him in the bag, but maybe they don't. So I agree with you that probably it's the right time for FTR to get it, and then obviously to have that inevitable match. But I'd like them to see something a bit different, and I'd maybe have them retain the titles, even if it's only for a week or 2 weeks or something. So, but to not just have the inevitable happen. So it could be kind of like a rebirth of that tag team, of that relationship, and they suddenly get on the same page again. And plus Adam Page is probably my MVP for AEW. I think I didn't really know anything about him before AEW, and I've been really impressed. So so I'm a little bit on the fence. The obvious result would be FTR to win, but I'm kind of hoping that they don't.
Interesting, very interesting. I like the idea of a swerve as well. Michael, your thoughts on this one?
I'm the other way. I think FTR will take it. They're building to Page being the heel turn. I actually think it's going to be an Omega. Omega's going to break and cost the belt, and it's going to be not the way that everyone's been building towards, because we've seen it many times when Omega and Young Bucks have been facing others in trio tag teams, and Omega's lost it. And I think that for me, I would do that. I'd do it where Page realizes what he's done wrong, but Omega loses it completely. Whether or not they'll do a heel Omega or whether it'll just be one of those flip-flop from one week to another, I don't know. But for me, I think FTR will be good. They've already had good matches, and hopefully we'll have a string of one-on-one tag team matches instead of having the build-up of having numerous three-way or a four-way with tag teams in it, because I know you've got to put your product and I know you've got to put your people on the show. I get that, but sometimes it's overdoing it that puts people off. So for me, FTR. But I think, yeah, as you said, I could sit and watch these two all day.
Yeah, it's going to be the one to watch on Saturday night. So, Chris Jericho versus Orange Cassidy in a Mimosa Mayhem match. So the match can be won by pinfall, by submission, or by throwing your opponent into a tank or a vat of mimosa. So originally, I wasn't looking forward to this one. I thought the stipulation was a little bit childish for AEW standards, but I love Chris Jericho, love Orange Cassidy. Their first match was, nothing special. The finish was horrendous, but I think they're going to kind of learn by that and give us a better match. Now, I think it's inevitable that the tank of Mimosa has to come into play for one wrestler or another. I just hope they deliver a better wrestling match before it gets to that than what they gave us a few weeks back on Dynamite. It's a tough one to call. I mean, do you give Orange Cassidy another win over Le Champion, or do you give Chris Jericho his win back? I think I'm kind of leaning towards Chris Jericho to get his win back. But Michael, starting with you, your thoughts on this one, and who do you think is going to win?
For me, I think Jericho will win it. He'll take it, but I think it'll be some sneaky, underhanded tactics. I don't think it's just going to be a clean win, but I do think that you are right. I think the vat of mimosa, or however it's going to look, is going to come in play, and I think that's where Orange Cassidy gets his Jericho gets his comeuppance, and whether it be Cassidy super kicking him into the vat to completely drown him. Both of them don't need the win. Both of them can eat the loss. But I think it'd be a better sight to see a feel-good take-home moment of Jericho winning, but then getting his getting kicked into it. I think that'll be the good way of doing it. Whether or not AEW do that, I don't know. But for me, Jericho, yeah, but Orange Cassidy getting the last laugh.
Yeah, that sounds very doable. Yeah, I'm kind of on board with that idea. And Matt, who's going for a swim at the end of it?
The risk of sounding flippant, I kind of don't care who wins. I think they could have some fun with it, and it doesn't really matter. But yeah, I think what Charlie said, I think, maybe if Jericho wins but ultimately ends up taking a bath at the end, that's maybe the better way of doing it. So. But then you never know who else is going to get involved. He's like, obviously they involved Joey Janela and Sonny Kiss this week as well. So if they're going to get involved in some way or another, especially because they're like party people, obviously the little bit of the bubbly is going to appeal to them. So yeah, I mean, I think the finish to their last match was abysmal. So they've got to kind of get that out of the memory. So hopefully it'll be a good match, and then I think I agree. Jericho picks up the win, but then he ends up in the vat of mimosa at the end.
Yeah. Maybe too predictable, but even so, that will be a fun ending. Let's talk about the main event then. So for the AEW World Championship, Jon Moxley versus MJF with Wardlow, and this match does have an added stipulation where Moxley is banned from using the paradigm shift finishing move. So quite an interesting one. Personally, I don't think he needs it. I think he should be able to hit any of his moves as a finisher. He's that top draw. But this seems a little bit of a mixed bag. I mean, as much as I'm a big fan of MJF, I don't think he's really up there or on the same level as Jon Moxley, in my opinion. So it's a bit of a mismatch, but potentially a lot of interference from Wardlow to even things up. He's already got the paradigm shift kind of removed from the match. I don't know. This match has had a really good build, a really fun build. Personally, I'd like to see Jon Moxley retain, but it wouldn't surprise me if they, move the championship over to MJF because of what a fantastic character he is. I think he's a stronger character than he is a wrestler, and still one of the best heels in the business, full stop. So I'm a little bit torn, but I'm going to go for Jon Moxley. I don't think it's time for him to drop the title just yet. So maybe they got a bit more that they can offer in this feud in particular. But Matt, let's start with you to talk about the main event. Where's your interest level with this, and how do you think it's going to go?
So, but my first point would be who makes the decision as to what's a DDT and what's a paradigm shift. You know, because he could just get normal DDT. But I think ultimately I want MJ to be AEW champion. I'm just not sure that is right now. So I am leaning towards to Moxley retaining. But I'm not really sure. I'm not really that sold on Moxley as champion either, because it's most of his title matches have been more like, you know, brawls and stuff like that. So he's not, you know, he's not necessarily the best wrestler in the world. I'd potentially say so. You know, so I'd rather him go up against opponents where he's actually wrestling and it's not just and everything. So, but like I say, ultimately MJF as champion down the line, I think is a great idea for character as much as in-ring performance. But yeah, I just don't think it's like the time for it yet.
Good shout. And Michael, to wrap things up, what's your thoughts on the main event? Who's your winner?
I go with Moxley. However, I do think MJF is the future. Whether it be for AEW or anywhere, I think at such a young age, for what he's done and for how he builds himself, how his character is, he's got something about him that you can't knock. The whole build up, like the presidential type of thing that he's been doing, I think has been really, really good. Sometimes it's felt a little bit flat, but him as a wrestler, he's just come on leaps and bounds. I don't think he'll win the belt. I'd be surprised if he does, but if he does, I don't think it will be a bad choice. Yeah, as I said, it's if you're going to go with a lot of people go with safe bets like Moxley, because obviously he's a name. He'll put bums on seats, that type of spiel. But MJF, I think, will work, whether he be as a TNT champion or as the heavyweight champion. I think either way, he'll be a draw for him, because he already is. But for me, right now, it's Moxley. I don't think it's the right person to drop it to. There's plenty of other people out there that I think, like Matt said, I think there are better potential champions out there than Moxley. It'd be quite cool to see him face Page, but we shall see. Yeah,
we shall see indeed. So for those of you that haven't already purchased AEW All Out, you can do via the Fight TV app or whatever pay-per-view services you have in whatever country you're listening to this on. But Michael and Matt from the Turnbuckle Arms, I just want to thank you so much for your time. We've had a good chat about Mauro Ranallo, about the four-way Iron Man match from NXT this past Tuesday, and given our predictions for AEW All Out. So thank you, Matt. Thank you, Michael. And hopefully we'll have you on the podcast again sometime very soon in the future.
Thanks for having us.